It's time for a live stream. Very impromptu one again, because I just feel like doing it, and see if we get we won't get amazing guests like we got last Tuesday. We had Nick Norwitz, we had Dr. Abs who just popped in. But feel free to drop a question in the chat. As my video just said, use a QQQ. I just wanted to talk over the weekend, the Keto Brain Health weekend, which was fantastic. I do have a question already from Josh, so we'll do that first, just to show how the questions work. What are your thoughts on cooking with red or white wine, e.g. in meat broths for extra flavour? Well, I'm one of those people that I'm not zero tolerance when it comes to carnivore. If you feel that that's going to be good for you and just makes it more palatable, but the rest of your carnivore journey you're going to stay on because you just enjoy it, well, it's not perfect, obviously, but it's okay. You got tannins and you got sulfites in wine. That's the main two things. Obviously, it's a plant, so there's compounds in plants that we don't like, but those are the two main ones. Obviously, sulfites will break down, and so will tannins. They will break down in the cooking process, but they're still there. And of course, tannins do interfere with the absorption of proteins and iron in particular. So it's not something you want to be consuming, but this is the thing about the net benefit. If you said, well, and I do know you, Josh, I know you're not like this, but let's just say you are. Well, if I can't do that, I'm not going to do the rest of the stuff. Well, it's worth doing. Sulfites definitely can cause headaches. I mean, I think it's quite common when people have red wine, not in broth. I'm just saying in general, they can get headaches and find that they are a little bit intolerant to it. But yeah, it's a good question. I'm really, really pleased that you asked it, because this is just one of those things where it's all about the life or net benefit balance. There are some things that I wouldn't eat personally. I just moved my mic to make sure everyone can hear me okay. There are certain things that, if you can't do without them, let's say a bit of avocado. I think that's one of the things. Some people like an avocado every so often. So yeah, have an avocado. But personally, if you've got autoimmune issues, for instance, or you're trying to be forensic and find out what is irritating you, and then go into real sort of strict, hate the word strict, but, really sort of as close to sort of lion diet as possible, is going to help you find out. It's going to help you find out what's actually causing you problems. So there you go. A brilliant supporter of the show. I hope that answered your question, Joshua, by the way. But, in our school community, you can always do a follow-up. Ribeye Rob, good evening. Thank you for the super chat. Really helps. Hit that like button, everyone. Yeah, really very, very, very poor at getting people to do that sort of thing. So yes, let's do that bit of sales stuff. If you can hit the like button, it really helps the channel. If you can comment, that shows the good old YouTube, who we love, that there's a lot of engagement here. And if you can share it, if you can subscribe, if you haven't, all of that really does help. Now then, Isabel is saying, I'm unable to get blood glucose below 5 and ketones above 0.5 unless I do 48-hour fasts, which feels too long. I feel much better when GKI is lower. Clean keto for 2.5 years, carnivore, except 1 coffee a day. Okay. Now, when you talk about these numbers, it is about how you feel. Glucose and ketones can be around that level, and it can be acceptable. I think we don't want to really stress over the numbers too much. It is about how you feel, how you perform, how you sleep, what your anxiety levels are. And I think the numbers are very misleading. And I can give you a really, really interesting, different example today, just to sell you the process that I'm going through here with you, talking about these numbers. Let's forget these numbers for a moment. Jane, my wife, went to have an eye checkup today, and she was really been complaining about her right eye, feeling it wasn't performing really well. But the numbers were interesting, because her right eye was 20/20, but her left eye was even better. But her perception of these fantastic numbers, and as the optician said, people would want to have your right eye, the one you're complaining about. It's 20/20, it's great, but your left eye is even better. Don't forget, she's 56, so these are really good results for, eyesight. But it was her perception. Her perception was that her eyes weren't doing really well because when she was reading, it didn't feel quite right. Well, that explained that even though, and this is the point, even though her right eye was perfect, her experience in life was not, because the left eye was so much better. All right. So let's go back to glucose. Now, what you're saying there, you can't get your blood glucose below 5 and your ketones above 0.5. And I totally understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to change that, bring the glucose down and bring your ketones up. Your body will decide what's best for you. If it needs a level of 5, is it because you're doing lots of activity, Isabel? Are you working out? Are you very active? Are you using your brain a lot? I mean, using your brain is really energy hungry. It really likes it. Now, you say here that you've been clean keto for 2.5 years, carnivore, except for 1 coffee a day. Now, coffee could do it. If you've got caffeinated coffee, that is a stimulant. That will definitely affect your adrenals, put your cortisol up a little bit. That's the whole point of the stimulation of that particular plant. And that will put your blood glucose up. You could do an experiment. You could stop taking the coffee for a little while and see if it changes your ketone reading. But I wouldn't worry about that. If you're feeling great, I wouldn't sweat over the numbers. I think this is one of the things that's going to shine through in 2025. I'm really going to pick up on this. And I've got some things from the Keto Brain Health conference and some other stuff from when I used to do lower back specialism, which I think is going to be mind-blowing in a minute. I'm going to do a share screen and you just won't believe it, which is to do with numbers and the MRI, the magnetic resonance images from people's backs. So, Isabel, I don't know if you're a member of our school community. This would be something I'd love to go into a little bit more detail about. Obviously, this is just a broad chat to everybody with those questions popping up. That isn't bad. The 5, glucose at 5 and ketones at 0.5. I'm exactly the same. And I think Richard, my co-host on a Sunday, he's very ketogenic. The Keto Pro, very, very lean and doing lots of endurance sports. He's rarely above 0.4 on his ketones. So I think we've got to stop worrying about this. Our liver will produce glucose in a demand-driven fashion, demand-driven fashion. So this could be just physiologically where you are at the moment. You could find that when you fast, obviously you can biohack those numbers and you will be using more fat for fuel. I think as you go into this, I started this on my 55th birthday. Here I am at 60 and a bit. And, if I got my Keto Mojo out tomorrow, I think my numbers would be very similar. Obviously, when you work out, glucose tends to go up, actually. Which is just a physiological response. I don't know if that's answered your question. I hope it has, Isabel. But I would, if you're really worried about it, take the coffee out first, see what happens, and just prove that concept. And then you can relax and think, okay, well, I'm stimulating the production of blood glucose because I'm putting this artificial stimulant in. And, basically, that's the thing that's tripping me up. It could be just 1 coffee a day is tripping you up. And then we go back to that net benefit thing I just said. If you love the coffee so much and you don't want to give it up and you're feeling great, then don't worry about those numbers. Those numbers are good, by the way. They are very good. We did talk about this over the weekend, didn't we, on one of the lives about the GKI and obviously those numbers, the therapeutic level of being, highly into the GKI, where the reading is 1. And if you do the Keto Mojo, for instance, or the calculation yourself, 9 is where you're not in ketosis at all. And as those numbers get lower, the level of ketosis goes higher. I think we need to not worry so much about being in ketosis, really. I think it's much more important about how you're performing. So let's have a little look. Yes, Gaza, you're saying about the Shakti mat. Yes, Shakti mat, that seems to have really been very popular. The Shakti mat is like an acupressure mat, which I recommend ever such a lot for lower back pain. I'll put a link in the description later. I haven't got one now because I'm not here to sell the links, really, even though the links are great, because all that happens is you either get a discount or you get the best of the best, and I might earn £1 or something. So everyone's a winner. Right. I'm going to do a screen share now, and we're going to talk about firstly, something from my lower back specialism 15 years ago. And it's about numbers. So hopefully this is interesting. If it isn't, I do apologize. So let's just have a look at this, and we'll go for it. Right. Okay. So here's here's something. Let's just hide that comment so we can see the whole screen. And let me just see if I can. I think I can actually make that a bit bigger, but we don't really need it. And I think we can all see that. Okay, so what this chart is, it's age-specific prevalence, estimates of degenerative spine imaging findings in asymptomatic patients. What does that mean? That means people that don't think they have any back pains. So I'm just going to move this over to the other screen so I'm sort of looking at the camera. Right, now then, what that means is that these people, hopefully you can see that some are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80 years old. So it's a really nice range of ages. Range of ages. Okay, these are people that have had MRIs or imaging done and have shown problems on the scan, but report no problems. Okay, this is really important because this is what I found, that many people had images that they brought in and said, I've got something wrong with my back. And I would say, well, what is it stopping you from doing? What pains are you getting? And they had no pains. So the body's pretty adaptive. You can have slight bulges. You can have a little bit of degeneration. It can also be, one of the things that's pretty interesting, I think, is it can also be that lying down to do the MRI is not really that good. You should be standing up. Or you can do a functional MRI. You can do some sort of movement and be scanned, and you can see what's going on. But anyway, let's get to the point. Right. So in the findings on the image, 37% of the people at age 20 or less, 37% showed that they had disc degeneration, but no pains and no problems. And a disc bulge, 30% had a disc bulge, okay, or a protrusion, around 30%. I'm not going to read all of them, but, you just jump up to age 40, for instance. 68% of these people asymptomatic, nothing wrong with them, 40 years old. 68% showed some level of disc degeneration, and 50% of them had disc bulge. 33% had a protrusion. When you get to age 60, so my age, 88% of the people with no back pain whatsoever, 88% showed disc degeneration, and you've got a disc bulge of 69% of the images and protrusion at 38%. Okay, so what is this showing? Well, it's showing that images and numbers might be a little bit of a bad thing to chase all the time. Because what would happen in that situation? You would be convinced that there's something wrong. The worst thing in the world with back pain is to be told you've got a problem, and then you moderate and regulate your movement and stop doing what you used to do. And all that motion that you used to do, you just stop. So you cause problems because someone has said you've got a problem, even though you didn't have a problem in the first place. And that is so classic of many of the things I did in rehab, where people will just change the way they walk, stop doing exercises, not because they had pain, but because they'd had an image and was told, you probably need surgery. Now, the frustrating thing about the surgery recommendation was, I can remember putting my hand up and thinking this was really bad, but I'll just tell you the whole story was, I was told that literally about 100% of back operations are successful. So, that sounds really good. And then later on in the lesson, it was, but 77% of people come back 3 years later with a referred pain, a different pain in a different part of their spine. Well, I put my hand up and said, well, that's not successful. That's just putting off the inevitable. And of course, nutrition at that point, I wasn't really into it then. I thought it was. I believed that, the Eat Badly guide and all that sort of stuff. I didn't really get the nutrition could make a big difference. Now, if I went to have an MRI, I would be very skeptical of being told I've got a problem. If I went in, as I do, I play football. I'm going to be playing 5-a-side football tomorrow night on a hard surface, on AstroTurf. And the next day, I'll be out of bed, no problems, no aches and pains and stuff like that at age 60. Now, I was told at 23 I would be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 50. And that was based on an image. So, although it isn't talking about ketones or bloods, which is obviously another thing I talk about, we've got to get back into listening to ourselves and what our body is doing and not be suckered in by just, these images and things like that. So there you go. Now, Gaza has put this cough Shakti mat. I wasn't trying to sell Shakti mats, but I do recommend them. They're acupressure mats. If you're interested, I will put a link in the description. There's a link in the school, but I never do it widely on YouTube. But if you're interested, or drop me an email at zerocarbcoach@gmail.com, and I'll send you a link to that, because it really works. It works on the ascending pain pathways. It's a bit like the Indians on a bed of nails. They can do that because what happens is that pain then is sent up to the somatosensory part of the brain. There's a topographical map of where the pain's coming from, and you get a descending pathway message that tries to cut that pain off. So that's pretty straightforward. Right, next thing. Let's go to the keto brain health thing, as there's no questions. I'm very surprised, actually. So let's do that. Let's bring that back, and we're going to do a share screen of a different thing, because this was a great presentation, and Zoe Harcum was talking about don't fear saturated fat. You're going to see a little trend here. We're talking about numbers a lot. I'm going to try and share this screen if I can. So let's present this, and you're going to like it, I think. So share that screen again. We're going to bring that back, and this is a ribeye. Something this is her presentation. I would like you to go to her website. It's www.zoeharcum.com. And I tell you what, if you want to take control of your own health, or you want to learn how to read studies and understand how the media is manipulating data, that is such a good website to go and have a look at. It really, really is good. And I don't think she'd mind, because I think this is pretty common knowledge, for instance, about a ribeye, because I talk about this. A ribeye, if you look at ribeye, 71% of it is water, and 21% of it is protein, and 7% is fat. 2% of that ribeye there. So when you have your big juicy ribeye and someone says, "Oh, there's way too much saturated fat," it's just 2% is saturated fat. Isn't that amazing? It's absolutely amazing. So I think that's one of the things I wanted to say. Is we need to stop fearing fat, and we certainly want to stop listening to the World Hoax Organization, and like I was saying earlier, the Eat Hill Guide and all this sort of stuff. We just need to stop looking at that, because it's not helpful. They're not telling you the truth, and it's pretty frightening how much misinformation is out there. It's really, really strange. So when we're eating this way, you want to be fully able to read studies, and you want to be able to do your own research. So going back to that first question about the glucose and ketones, that is fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic, because you can see what your body is doing. You could eat some porridge and or oatmeal, as the Americans call it, and you could see that your blood glucose rises. It's just great. And that's what Zoe's very, very, very good at, is letting you make your own decisions. So she gives all the links. You can read the studies yourself. Now, if you're, I'm not scientific, I don't really understand the studies, her website's fantastic, because it takes the studies and it shows you how to read them and how to criticize them, because they're full of errors and misrepresentations. Now, why is that? Why do you think that the Eat Lancet guide, for instance, is telling you all these strange things? Well, if you look at who sponsors the Eat Lancet guide, and this was a good slide from Zoe there, let's get rid of the thumbnails, and we can't get rid of them. My computer not working very well. But if you look at all these people that are behind the Eat Lancet diet guidelines, you will see it's all this rubbish. PepsiCo. And you've got all basically agricultural, chemical, tech companies, all of this. It's just absolutely awful. Kellogg's, Unilever, all the usual suspects, basically, who you wouldn't want to. Protix is, insects, eating insects. What a surprise. What a surprise. And then you've got Google, Nestle, all of those. They're the people. Kia. Yes, IKEA. That did get a laugh, actually, at the conference. Oh, why IKEA? Nobody knew. But let's get rid of that. So that's brilliant. But that made me laugh. Look at this live question. Let's have a look. Mark J. I got lower back, strict form on squat, etc. but just comes on a few days, then gone and repeat. 3 years ago, went carny, then had a trapped nerve in the armpit. Awful, 3 months, no sleep, etc. Nothing worked. Physio, 3 times a week, no joy. Painkillers, not help. Did 1 round of dead hanging, gone. Thoughts, yes. You know, dead hanging is one of those things I would absolutely love people to try because it is just brilliant. So if you want the technical term, it's really good for your kinetic chain, certainly your rear kinetic chain. It's really good for shoulder. It's great for grip strength. For those that don't know what dead hanging is, it sounds horrible. Actually, it's a horrible name. But dead hanging is going onto a pull-up bar, holding on and just hanging and just letting your body drop to will realign everything, really improve all your strength. It was something I did 5 years ago as an experiment. The long story of this is there was a chap in Liverpool who was betting people, you paid £5 and he said, if you can hang for a minute, then I will give you £100. So that's not a bad deal. And many people, it just looks so easy. And of course it isn't. And I think I did 86 seconds, first go. And I just wanted to get really good at it. So I came home and I started dead hanging. Within 6 weeks, I'd gone from, actually it was 68 seconds. And then by the end of about 6 weeks, it was 157 seconds. So that was good. It's absolutely brilliant, Mark. Yes, I'm really glad you mentioned that because it's something I don't push as much as I should. But dead hanging, it's really cheap. If you can get a pull-up bar, it's really good if you can hang it. I know you can get them for the door frames, but then you have to bend your knees. It's not so effective. It is much better if you can completely hang. When you are hanging, if you do try it, so your arms are really stretched up high, don't bend your head down, don't look up, which is common problems people do, those sort of things. And just look straight ahead, parallel to the floor, that your eyes are ahead. And if you did a minute, let's be honest, if you don't do a minute, don't worry about it. Do as long as you can, and then just the next time you do it, do slightly longer. Always time it. You will find that you might actually improve your time and then have a little fallback. Don't let that put you off. Just keep doing it, and then you'll start getting better and better. Mark, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Let's just have one last thing here. I've got tennis elbow in both arms. Some exercises very difficult. Pain waking up, straightening arm, dead hanging help, you think? I think it should. It should. There are other exercises you can do for elbow. This isn't really a rehab clinic. Yeah, I think it's very difficult to demonstrate. I'm sitting here. There are exercises you can do. You can always email me and I can send you a link to some exercises if you want to. Isabel is saying that she is a member of school. Thank you very much for the in-depth answer. And Isabel, yes, thank you. I thought you were actually, so that's really nice. P. Ashford. Wow, my back is shot, especially after abdominal surgery. Hubby has a bar in the garage. Shall try this. Thanks all. That's great. That's really great. So let's go back to the screen shares from the weekend. And I think this was great. This was Ivor Cummins, who was talking about the predictive nature of cardiovascular disease. And he was talking about the difference between HDL and LDL as great predictors. So let's see if I can make sense of this. Ivor Cummins, fantastic. He has this metabolic class that he does that you can sign up for if you go to his channel. It's very good. I'm going to try again to get rid of these thumbnails. I don't know if I can. Let's try and hide the sidebar. Will that work? There we go. That's good. Right. Never get that back again now. Right. So this chart was looking at your risk of heart disease after 4 years. The axis along here, 2.58, 4.13, 5.6. This is cholesterol in UK numbers, but you'll get the point. The further across, the higher the incredibly bad cholesterol, which is the same as the cholesterol in HDL. So LDL, which has cholesterol in it, which is the same molecule as in the HDL, is going up from 2.5, 4.13, 5.6. So these are big numbers. But look at the risk of heart disease. It's hardly gone up. And look at this, the HDL here, going up hardly. The risk is not very bad. But when HDL decreases, which is this axis on this side, and if you're listening on audio, I do apologize. Basically, what you're seeing is a 2 to 2.5 times increase in risk. Risk is a bad phrase because that implies a cause and effect statement. So we can't prove that with epidemiology, but we'll go with what the mainstream says. Look at this HDL. That's that decreasing, the good cholesterol decreasing, seems to be a huge predictor, doesn't it? Absolutely huge predictor of heart disease. So basically, if you were up here and you had this 2.5 times risk from your very decreased HDL, that's possibly, you know, where a consultant could justify a statin, maybe. Don't you think? Up here, the top right-hand corner, where your HDL is so low and your risk is 2.5, that's possibly where you would recommend a statin. You wouldn't even be looking at the LDL, would you? Because what's the point? However much that raises, that risk doesn't even go up above 0.5. So you can go from left to right on that graph, and wow, it's totally irrelevant. So where do they actually recommend doing the statin? Where is it? Oh, it's here. Look at this. Irrelevant of HDL. It's just LDL they use. So it'd be great if you could see the visual here, because this is totally irrelevant thing. And I thought this was a great graph that Ivor shared. I really did, because it just shows how ludicrous it is to use LDL as a predictor of heart disease. Just makes zero sense. Zero. Excellent. Okay, so Mark, thanks, Stephen. I'll send an email, read the tennis elbow exercise later. Going to enjoy the show now. Great work. We'll be joining school. That's great. I will put a link in the description. I might just, if you don't mind, people, try and find a link to do it now in the chat. So let's see if I can do that while we're on. And if you want to join the school community, I do thoroughly recommend it. We're a good bunch. I know T is in it, and Isabel, as we've already said. So let me just cut and paste that. And if you want to join the school, you certainly can. So let's just put that in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing, post that comment. And I think, oh, yes, thank you. School is great. It is. I think it's great. We've got all the courses, free ebooks, flip books, everything. Once you join, we do a live every single Monday night for an hour. Myself and normally Richard Smith. Richard, because he's in such demand as a speaker, he's currently in Spain at a conference speaking with people like Natasha Campbell-McBride and Anthony Chafee. So you've got access to one of the best speakers in the world about the ketogenic diet. One of the UK's top nutritionists. He's been on TV talking about nutrition. You get that every single week. It's incredible what he does. And we both do a free live on a Sunday at 7 p.m. all the way across the UK every single Sunday. If you want us to do that, that's completely free. So we're not always trying to get you onto school. But then after that hour, we do an extra time for the members of school, especially on a Sunday night for half an hour. So you get ever such a lot of value, which is great. So thank you very much. T's there saying school is great. Thank you, T. That's really good. Right. And here we've got Carnivore, which is a good name. Hope one day the cholesterol BS will die. So do I. You know, I really, honestly, because it is based on feeding rabbits fat, which they don't eat. It's a bit like, wow, we fed some fat to cows and they were really sick. Well, they're supposed to eat grass. That's really obvious. So that's one of the things that they, it started this ridiculous thing about LDL cholesterol. And then you've got the Sugar Research Foundation bribing two Harvard scientists to not say that sugar is bad, but it is fat. So we know it's based on fraud. We know it's based on flawed science. And it's 70 years ago. We still haven't got any proof that LDL is causal. After 70 years, we've got much better science and theories which have much more weight. As you just saw, decreasing levels of HDL is a better indicator. Ratio between triglycerides and HDL is a better indicator. Anyway, I don't want to get into that too much because we have covered that quite a bit. Let's get back into the screen sharing of some brilliant stuff from the Keto Brain Health thing, which was a really good conference. I think I might have one more. Oh, yes, I do. This was interesting. I thought this was something that we have talked about, but a couple of people came to me afterwards and said, I've never even heard of this, which is the number needed to treat. Now, when you work in any sort of healthcare setting, you have to be qualified to deal with medications. This is one of the things that comes up. It's called the number needed to treat. Now, I did this about 15 years ago when I got my specialist practitioner status in obesity and diabetes. I had to learn about all the medications, or not all the medications, but a vast majority of medications, because they have a huge impact on diabetes for a start. And the number needed to treat shocked me. Now, this is the number that all these pharmaceuticals go through. And you think when your doctor, your general practitioner, your healthcare physician prescribes you a medication, that is for you and they're pretty convinced it's going to work. Well, the number needed to treat in a very basic way is no. It might be out of 100 people they give it to, one will get some benefit. So this was looking at a certain medication that we talked about earlier when it comes to cardiovascular disease. And 1 out of 217 people given this pharmaceutical, 1 in 217. So 217 patients have come in. 1, it might work for, it might make them avoid a non-fatal heart attack, a myocardial infarction, as it's called. Or 313 in 1 will avoid a non-fatal stroke. But the harms, look at this. 1 out of 21 people, 1 will experience pain from muscle damage, and 1 in 204 will develop diabetes mellitus, or mellitus, however you want to say it, depends where you live. So, just if you're very good at maths, you will realize that if you multiply that up by millions and millions, the chances of harm are much greater than the benefits. And going back full circle to how I started this, we were talking about net benefits. Well, there's no net benefits there. And the thing is, I will start sharing more articles of this nature. I think going forward, what we're trying to do is make these articles more and more available for the public and just get that information out there. So going back to Ivor Cummins and Zoe Harcum, 2 absolutely top people who do publicly put this stuff out there. So, definitely check them out if you haven't heard of them before, because their information is superb, absolutely superb. Hello, Stephen. My 7-year-old wants to know why we should eat meat. Well, it's good for us. For a start, full of amino acids and essential fatty acids. Meat is one of the few foods that has virtually everything that you need. There is something quite interesting in these things. Let's actually just go to one more thumbnail. I didn't really want to use too many of the slides. I think that one might actually, this might answer that question. Should we do this? No, okay. I'm sure Zoe would be all right with this one last thing. This is how good her website is. Because you have a question, she's probably covered it. And she does it in a beautiful, bite-sized, easy to understand way. So let's do this. And let's get rid of that sidebar. Why should we eat meat? So for your 7-year-old, here is veg, fruit, grains, legumes, oils, eggs, dairy, meat, and fish. And then along the top here, we've got essential fatty acids. Do they have them? Essential fatty acids is exactly what it says on the tin. They're fatty acids that are essential. We have to eat them. Protein, which is essential, most amino acids. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, they're the fat-soluble vitamins. We really want K2, other vitamins, and minerals. So let's have a look. Veg, have we got essential fatty acids in veg? No, we haven't. Have we got lots of protein in veg that's bioavailable and how we want with all the amino acids? No. Have we got vitamins A, D, E, and K? No, we haven't got A, we haven't got D. Which is in the human form that we need. We don't, but we have E and we have K1. K2 is a better fatty acid, vitamin. And we don't have B12, which is essential for red blood cell formation. We make 180 million red blood cells every single minute. 180 million red blood cells are made every minute. Obviously recycled. Otherwise, if they weren't near recycled, we'd just get bigger and bigger and look like big red balloons. But anyway, there's no B12 in there, but there is some minerals in the veg. So veg hasn't done very well. What about fruit? Well, there's no essential fatty acids in fruit. No protein really to speak of in fruit. Yes, it has E and it has K1, but it doesn't have B12. So again, we've got the red blood cell problem, but it's got some minerals. Now, fruit, an apple in your supermarket, that could have been picked over a year ago. I do have a video on my channel, which is actually from PDFs from the food growers, right, from the horse's mouth, where they talk about the fact that they pick the apple, they put it in storage for maybe over a year, they spray it with a substance, they have a controlled environment, and within weeks, everything that allegedly is good in the first place, that's all gone completely and utterly. So you just end up with a bag of sugar. Right, grains. No essential fatty acids, no protein. It's only got E and K1, no B12, Legumes, exactly the same. No essential fatty acids. Wow, this isn't doing very well, is it? And no amino acids not the full range of amino acids. Only got E and K1. So we're missing A and D both times, and no B12. Okay, right. So let's have a look at eggs. We're going to get to your 7-year-old's answer in a minute. Eggs. They have all the essential fatty acids you need. They have all the protein that you need. They have vitamins A and D and E and K. They have all the minerals, but not vitamin C. But don't forget, we don't need vitamin C or hardly any vitamin C in this way of eating. Dairy, full fat, has all the essential fatty acids, has all the protein, has A, D, E, and K. It doesn't have C, but it also has minerals. And here's your answer. Meat. Here we go to your lovely 7-year-old. Meat. What does it have? Has essential fatty acids, everything that we need. Has every single amino acid that we need. It has every single vitamin, A, D, E, and K. It has vitamin B12, which is essential for red blood cell formation, and all the minerals. It's the only one across there that has a tick all the way across. Wow. Fish, essential fatty acids. And I would say when we look at essential fatty acids, it also has, abundance of EPA and DHA, which is great for brain health. Keto brain, that's what we're doing at the weekend. Great amount of protein, vitamins A, D, E, and K, and of course that's good. Doesn't have vitamin C and loads of minerals. So I hope that has answered your 7-year-old's question. And I've got Zoe being interviewed at the last day of October, and we're going to be talking about all these things. And I'm going to say you might have turned a 7-year-old into a carnivore with that one brilliant bit on your website. So there you go. So this is really nice. I mean, Isabel here is saying, Schoolie, super supportive community and great value for a very low subscription price. Highly recommended. Fernando is saying, greetings. Kisses from Mexico. That's right. And Sherry here. Very good. Love and light from California. Wow. I love the fact we've got followers from all over the world. It's really good. And Sherry has joined school. Great. I'm glad I joined it. And Matthew is just saying thank you. That's all right, Matthew. That's fine. I think we're very quick to dismiss questions sometimes when we're doing lives because we want to get into all the science and all that sort of stuff. And a 7-year-old sums it up with a great question. Why should we eat meat? I mean, that's it. It's a really good question. I'm going to go on a real big aside now because so many people have been telling me I think I sound like David Brent or Ricky Gervais, and I just can't hear it. But it's made me very conscious. So next time, maybe I'll have a tie and I'll do that sort of haltering way of speaking that, he does. And that sort of laugh. I can't do it. Anyway, maybe I should do that. I won't get my guitar. I can play the guitar badly, but I won't do that. Right. The other thing is I wanted to talk about it was really weird this week because a client from 2 years ago, because I do have clients that come back. I don't do my success stories and never see them again. So I have clients from way back when I started carnivore coaching, and actually even longer. I'm very proud of the fact I got to over 1,000 clients and keep in contact with a lot of them. So there's so many success stories. I'm very pleased with that. But one came back after 2 years away and had done some fasting. And it's the longest water fast that I've ever had to coach. We were talking about how do you break your fast? Well, firstly, why do people fast? And I don't think you should mind me saying, there was a lot of autophagy, some oxalate dumping from the eyes and all this sort of stuff. Mental health benefits. I am not saying that you should. You don't. Your lender is saying you need a zip code. I don't think you need to do that to sign up for school. You shouldn't really need your zip code, but that possibly might be for the subscription. So, yeah. I think just come out and try again. It could be nice to have you on board. So I've never had that query before. It's always been easy to sign up. So there might be a little mistake somewhere. You might maybe have, not put the email right. I don't think it takes a payment unless we're convinced that you can join and the email's correct. So just check on that, Yolanda. So yeah, sorry if it's a bit awkward for you tonight to sign up. It'd be great to have you on board. Just going back to the fasting. Lots and lots of benefits to fasting, but people worry about refeeding. And I was going to share my protocol. So one of the things that I said to my wonderful person was, I'm going to share this tonight because I think I've done this for you as a client, and I think it's a nice bit of information, and I'm going to share it with people and make it a thing that I will send out. So this is going to go on to school as a freebie. And again, if you want the protocol, you can email me at Zero Carb Coach, ZERO, not zero as in the number. It is meant to be the number, but you spell it out, zerocarbcoach@gmail.com. And I'll send it to you. That's it. So, I like to give out as much information as I can free, but obviously I've got to pay the bills, which is why we ask for super chats and stuff like that. But hopefully I'm giving you good value. Right. One of the things I want to say about fasting, and when you come back to refeeding, what is the state of your body? Well, yeah, firstly, you have obviously done some good things. An extended fast will see insulin levels fall. That's the first thing you need to be really aware of, because obviously you're not eating and your body is resetting, your insulin levels will fall. We've done bloods. I mean, I've done bloods with people that really like biohacking, and you can see even a 24-hour fast does make a big difference to the insulin levels. So refeeding with carbs is the worst thing to do. This is not an anti-carb diatribe. It's just the physiology of when you refeed, and just giving you a couple of different ways to look at it. So we're going to talk about the shorter term refeeding, and then we'll talk about longer term as well. So you're breaking your fast after, say, 24 hours. So anything before that, if you're doing intermittent fasting, you haven't really got a problem because you're eating every 24 hours. That's pretty much in tune with what your body wants to do. Again, if you're eating 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day, and it's working, don't worry. I mean, this is a thing that you can do for a therapeutic reason. You can do it for a body composition. You can do it like a reset. Some people do it for their skin. I think a 72-hour fast is the feral grandma was in. Hello. A 72-hour fast is fantastic. People are so surprised when they get to the third day and they feel less hungry than they did the day before. I can remember when I first started low carb, I did not believe I could even go a day without eating. And it becomes a brilliant thing that your body can adapt to. We're not meant to eat 3 times a day. We're certainly not meant to eat 6 times a day, like 3 meals and stacks. Terrible. So let's go back to why that's bad, because you're always pushing your insulin up. If you do an extended fast, definitely your insulin will become very low. Now, if you're doing that, be very careful. If you're diabetic, you've got medications, you need to look at your dosage to make sure, because, many medications are based on your food intake. So you've got to be really, really careful when you're doing that. This is not medical advice. It's talking generally about how fasting works and the benefits. So when you have done this, fasting will slow down your digestion, or enzymes, your stomach acid, all that sort of stuff is going to reset. So eating a lot of food straight away, that might be just a little bit too much for your body. Right. It's not such a big deal if it's less than 24 hours. So let's say it's over 24 hours and you're worried about refeeding. There are 2 ways to approach it. Some people use what I call the fat first theory, which is you just 30 minutes before the meal you're going to have to break your fast, you have a little bit of fat. Why fat? Well, that doesn't elicit much of an insulin response and gets you sort of into the groove of doing some sort of digestion. But it's not a lot. So you could have a teaspoon of MCTs. You could have some butter. You could have some butter in a coffee or a tea. You could have some ghee, or even an avocado. Yeah, I've got a hand in my Carnivore card. I've said avocado. But for some people, that bit of fat is what they need. They want that fat with a sort of solid. It's nothing to do with the fiber. It's more to do with the fact that will elicit a very small insulin response. I'm not talking about eating the whole avocado either, just a little sliver. Definitely don't have carbs. And that's a given, because if you do eat carbs, you've got that low level of insulin already circulating in your body, so it's a bit too much. And what I've found is people that ignore that and think that's the way to go, they get an effect that I term rebound eating. I think a few other people have said that as well. Or they just, oh, wow, these are great, I'm going to eat even more. But I think that's carbs in general, but not just with fasting. Right, so then if the fat thing doesn't work, you can do the food first. So you've got fat first or food first. I would try the fat thing just to see how it goes. But if it doesn't float your boat, then the food first. My priority would be something like bone broth to break your fast. Very small portion, very small amount. You could try some beef. I think that would be good. Fish. And again, possibly an avocado if you're including non-carnivore food. Very small portion. Right. But what do you avoid? Nuts, nut butters, fibrous vegetables because, they're really tough on your stomach, seeds. And at this point, eggs and dairy, I wouldn't break my fast with eggs and dairy, okay? Because these things are not the easiest to digest and they take a little more stomach acid and enzymes to break them down. So we don't really want to do that. We want to make sure it's nice and easy, but again, small portion. And then when you get to your meal, so if you're doing a food first, I'd have a very small portion, 30 minutes to maybe 90 minutes before. And then when you get to your actual meal, then, you're into beef, fish, eggs, chicken, lamb. And just for those people that like avocado, possibly an avocado if you're including non-carnivore food. Again, it's a small portion. Definitely still avoid nut butters, fibrous veg and seeds. Not great. Okay, so then the protocol then does have over 5 to 10 days of fasting, but then we've got to talk about refeeding syndrome, which is a real thing. Because you have gone into this extended fast, your body is trying to use the incoming protein from that first meal and start anabolism, so building up. So this can result in very low levels of potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, thiamine, which B1, salt, and even water in your blood. So we've got to be really careful if you're on antacids and if you're on diuretics or have a history of undereating. So the longer the fast, the slower you introduce the food. Avoid sweeteners because that can trigger some appetite things. Mistakes to avoid for those doing the prolonged fasting: avoid breaking the fast with carbs, fruit, or even berries. Avoid exercise. That's another thing. Don't get straight into exercise. I know it sounds really obvious, but don't do that. Obviously walking is okay. Don't suddenly start to overeat when you come out of the fast. And that might seem like that's something everyone suffers with. Actually isn't, but for some people, I would definitely not discount that as a problem. Just be very, very on it with your portions. This is actually contrary to what a lot of people have said, but I would avoid using apple cider vinegar at this point. Remember, you're in a ketogenic state. That's an acidic state. Some people say, I don't really like that phrase, but when you're in a ketogenic state, you probably don't need the apple cider vinegar. And definitely avoid protein powders because that protein is sort of super refined and it's going to get into your system too quick. It's all about slow getting back into food. I did this thing for people with some references. If you want, they're live on the PDFs. You can have a little look, which is what to do when you break your fast. Not breakfast, it's break fast. That's where breakfast comes from. Hour 0 when you break it, and then what happens from half an hour to an hour, 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 6, 6 to 12, day 2, day 3 to 5. So it's really hand-holding all the way through the process. Hopefully you like that. So we're looking constantly at things like, when you start, just a bone broth to start using. My instructions on this, I'm just going to paraphrase because people can get this if they want. And then after half an hour to an hour, easily digestible nutrient and animal products. And then you've got a rest period where you just allow your body to adjust, but you stay hydrated with a little bit of salt. And then after 4 to 6 hours, you have your second meal, portion sizes, this sort of thing. And then hour 6 to 12, you just monitor again, listen to your body. And then day 2 is just a slow, continual, and then gradual increase of portion sizes. And then by day 3 to 5, you're transitioning back to just normal eating. Hopefully that was fun for everybody. I can see a few people talking. Yolanda, I hope you are having joy now signing up to the school website. That'd be really great. If you're having problems, you can always email me and I'll help you get through that. So Sarah Jane is saying, Carney, since March, struggled with tooth staining for several years. Last 2 months, my teeth have become white and realized that the staining was the inside structure of teeth. In fact, my teeth have remineralized. It's brilliant. My teeth have become transparent like glass. It's amazing. Even seen improvement since yesterday. Do you think my transparent teeth has been the start of osteoporosis? I'd need to see your teeth, but I very much doubt it if they're looking better. My teeth are atrocious from my high-carb diet until age 50. And I would say that I am a real sufferer with coffee staining it. I tried tea and that stains it even worse. Dark chocolate stains it. If you go this way of eating and you cut down your coffee and tea, that will help the appearance of your teeth. I think one of the things you could do is send a picture, and I might pass it on to Dr. Abs, who's obviously much more qualified to look at teeth because that's what he did. Dr. Abs was a dentist for a long while. He might be able to look at it and give me some tips to pass on to you. if you don't mind. My teeth look fine, but they're really not. So that's very kind of you. I spent possibly the first 4 years on YouTube with this microphone in front of my mouth because I hate my teeth. But that's really kind of you. So anyway, we've got not much time left. I really have appreciated everybody's questions. Like I say, if you liked that fasting protocol, do email me. Don't forget the kidney protocol that I've been very successful with. You can always email about. If you can join the school, that's great as well. Super chats are always fantastic. Even if you're watching this on playback and you're not live, every single thing helps. So, just try to do that. Right. Okay. So what's Mark saying here? Mark, what would you say is your top 3 benefits since quitting the carbs at 50? Wow. Well, that's a great question. What way to top and tail this this hour of fun? Right. Let's have a look. Top 3 benefits. That's really difficult. Right. Okay. Cognitive function. That is absolutely a nailed on thing because I've done 2 honours degrees in my life. My first honours degree was in English literature. I love English literature. I love reading books. For those that don't know, I did spend a big part of my life acting. I went to drama school. I did improvised comedy. I even did improvised Shakespeare. All right. So that's not me being big-headed. I did improvised Shakespeare at the Edinburgh Festival. Right. So I like literature. That's the point. It wasn't difficult for me until I did a science degree in physiology and health sciences in this state as a carnivore. And I found doing that degree much easier, much easier. So I was older. Yeah, maybe being older is actually helpful, but I would say literature is easier than science, to be honest. But I found the science easier to do. So I would say cognitive benefits would be the first one. Secondly, I would say less aches and pains, recovery from training, all that sort of stuff. Just not feeling like an old fart, is it? Things that you think are just normal aging aren't. It's a product of the bad diet. So just bending down and trying to turn a switch on under a cabinet or something might have hurt me a little bit when I was 45. But I can do more than that, much more flexible. I don't do any stretches or any flexibility training or anything like that. So that, I think, and I think having my eyes open to the world and understanding I've been lied to, I think that's been very, very beneficial because I had been lied to about nutrition. I really did. When I was doing the advanced personal training, I really believed the food guidelines. Didn't smoke, didn't drink, did everything. I did the porridge in the morning, maple syrup, freshly squeezed orange juice, didn't have red meat, didn't have saturated fat, did it all. I did it all properly, exercise, everything. And by the time I was in my late 40s, lower left quadrant pain, fatter, sicker, pre-diabetic, all that. And I think the realization that they can lie about so many things has helped me in every avenue of my life. I'm absolutely so aware that I'm being lied to by politicians, big companies, banks, the whole lot are lying because it's all about money. So I know that. I mean, everything, trying to shut down the farmers. I don't want to get political. And I remember when I started at MeatRx, I was very worried that Sean Baker didn't talk about the food as much as I thought he should. And he did get into the political arena. It is political. And I really do apologize if this sounds like a rant and a soapbox. But the World Health Organization, CDC, the FDA, the USDA, everything, they don't want you to eat meat. But that's nothing to do with health and all the pharmaceutical companies. If you look at Vioxx, VIOXX, a painkiller, that company was fined because they knew that their painkiller medication, they knew it increased the incidence of heart attack by at least X2. They knew that, and that was proven in court, and they were fined, but they knew it, and that is not a one-off. So I think that's it. Is it borderline rant? I do apologize, but I just feel that might be a strange sort of abstract benefit from eating food that made me feel so much better. And like I say, over 1,000 people now feel so much better that have dealt with this, and it's incredible. So I had the wonderful Lee Copus on last night, and he's lost his colon. He's had 2 surgeries, and all they did was stuff fiber into him and recommend more and more fiber. My mother died of colon cancer. She followed the food guidelines absolutely religiously. She ate everything that the vegans and vegetarians say stops you getting colon cancer. And she avoided all the things that allegedly give you colon cancer, and she got colon cancer. Right? I know that's an N=1, but I've heard it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I'm just one guy in Derbyshire with a very small client base, and I've heard it hundreds and hundreds of times how getting rid of fiber has resolved IBS, IBD, everything. Diverticulitis, everything. Lower left quadrant pain, everything. So there you go. They're not the answer you probably expected. I think that's it. I think to be carnivore, you've got to be open-minded. And if you want to argue about, say, the ethics of animal cruelty, then Richard and I did a real analysis of how many animals die to let a vegan survive, and how many animals die to have a carnivore survive. And there's 21 more times animal deaths for a vegan, 21 times. And we were really conservative because that's all the pesticides, all the destruction to the soil, the monocropping, which is obviously terrible for the environment. So all this stuff about saving the planet, you've only got to look at a field of solar panels and then compare it to a field of cows, and you know that the cows are not the problem. They are not the problem. You've only got to look at a monocropping landscape to know that is not good for the environment. To wipe out, rip up all the trees and rip out all the bushes and destroy all the habitat for all the animals that live there. And wow, it's so obvious to me. The feral grandma, Lee was in hospital again. Yes, he's out. I had him on the school community last night, a little closed gap thing. And the second surgery was the cause. It was adhesions. And then they went into hospital when they realized it had self-corrected. So Lee is back home now. And you can see that on the school community. We did a live last night to talk about that. Anyway, right. Enough of the ranting. I seem to have lost a few viewers, so I do apologize. We were talking about carnivore, but it is one of the benefits for me. It's a real one. So thanks for ever so much for watching. You heard me mention the banks. Yes, I've had my bank account frozen in the last couple of days, so that they've joined my list. All I'm doing is trying to get information out there. So if you can give us a super chat, that's going to just make my day, to be honest. Even if it's £1, it just helps to know that there are people out there that are trying to get this message out there. And Yolanda, please email me if you're having problems, because I really want to sort that out. Jojo, carnivore healed my diverticulitis complete. And there you go. You see, these are just real people, and it works. It works time and time again. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for the questions, and I hope it was entertaining, apart from my little rant at the end. And I might see you next Tuesday, which would be great. Don't forget, on Sundays at 7 p.m. in state-controlled Britain, if I'm allowed to broadcast, it will be with Richard Smith. I think he'll be back from Spain, and it will be great to have you on board. Anyway, have a lovely evening, everybody. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Herbert. Thanks, everybody. Right, I'm going to stop the stream now.